I aim to suggest a sense of what we are with a discussion of how we assimilate information as signals from our environment into our bodies through the senses, how we process that information, and how it impacts our development over time. We are creatures that see, hear, touch, taste, and smell to gather information from our immediate surroundings. We also have internal experiences, thought, memory, and attention. We perceive. The link between the experiences of the senses and the experiences of the mind strengthens as our bodies develop and as we have more experiences, as we grow and live in the world. I'm going to discuss each of the senses in some detail. I will proceed referring to the most common use of the senses. Please conceptually allow for exceptions for those that are blind or deaf, or more generally, experience some physical sense in some less common way. We are able to see with our eyes. Seeing is the photosensitive perception of colors, shape, and size, and distances. It is the primary medium of our attention. With our eyes, we take in information in the form of light, which, in generally illuminated spaces, is reflected from everything around us at varying energies. When we see and perceive dimmer or brighter, this is the consequence of less or more photons of lower or higher energy states, less or more energy, coming from some source or set of sources into our eyes. We seem to be really good at visually attending to small things that move quickly above and below us, such as snakes and birds. We recognize faces very well, and we enjoy visual arts like photography. When we are doing these things, we are a system responding to the energetic stimulus of light collected by our eyes from our environment. In some sense, we are helpless to this process. Even when we close our eyes, we can see. Only when we are asleep are we not truly seeing, yet even dreams often have a visual component. We are able to hear with our ears. Hearing is the acoustic perception of perturbations of the air around us. When we hear, it is because the stuff in the space around us is vibrating with a rich texturing of frequencies and amplitudes we are sensitive to. Our ears transform the vibration of the air around us into a signal which can be relayed through the nerves to the brain. We perceive loudness and pitch and timbre. When we hear and perceive quieter or louder, this is the consequence of sound waves carrying less or more energy to our ears. We come to recognize significant sounds, such as car horns, our favorite songs, or gunshots. When we are doing these things, we are a system responding to the energetic stimulus of vibrations of the air through our ears. As with vision, in some sense, we are also helpless to this process of hearing. A sufficiently loud and proximate noise will be caught by the ear and processed in the brain. What we are demands this. We are able to touch, to feel through our skin. Our outermost physical boundary of the body is filled with a lattice of nerves which send information to the brain about that which we come in direct contact with. We perceive friction, smoothness and roughness, cold and hot. We can feel pressure when diving underwater. Particular senses of feeling give us particular types of information about our environments. We know that hot is when the molecules of that which we touch are vibrating faster and, in the moment of contact, transfer energy to us. Cold is when the molecules of that which we touch are moving slower and, in the moment of contact, take energy from us. When we feel through touch, we are a system taking account of the physical details of that which comes into contact with our boundary. We are able to taste with our mouth and smell with our nose. Taste is the perception of flavor. Smell is the olfactory perception of scent, aroma. Rather than through photonic excitation or direct force, our sense of taste and smell are driven by the particular molecular makeup of what our taste buds and olfactory nerves come in contact with. We are particularly sensitive to things that smell good, aromatic, and bad or stinky. We learn generally that things that smell and taste good would be healthy for us to ingest. Think freshly baked bread. And that things that smell and taste bad could be potentially harmful. Think excrement or mold. It's through taste and smell that we really get a sense for what is going on at the chemical level of what we are interacting with. We get a sense of the potential impact to our bodies were we to imbibe the source of the smell. When we taste and smell, we are a system taking account of the chemical details, the composition and concentration of what makes it into our mouths and noses. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. These are ways that we take in information. We are each our body, a body with senses. These are the mechanisms by which our senses function, and they are physical. Through the exchange and transformation of matter and energy through our bodies, we learn, we grow, we live. In a very real sense, we, within and as part of the world, are dynamic, changing materially every moment. We are each the ship of Theseus at some real biological material level. Biology, chemistry, and physics are technical scientific disciplines which have now for centuries been aimed at expanding and sharpening the body of human knowledge about the physical world. We know the world is round-ish. We know a fair bit about the nature of light, its speed and dual wave particle nature. We understand aerobic respiration at the biological level of lungs and diaphragms and blood vessels, and at the chemical levels of glucose and oxygen and water, and at the atomic levels of excitation energy and electron shells and reactivity. Millions of human beings over centuries have devoted themselves at one level or another to the project of understanding the external world and what we are as a part of it. Here I will briefly stray from the realm of the known to a discussion of consciousness as such, more in the realm of the posited. I find consideration of consciousness to be a direct extension of consideration of the senses. Though scientists and philosophers have studied and considered the external physical world for centuries, our internal senses, internal experiences of memory and thought, of qualia, remain fundamentally mysterious to us, to the scientific process. Consciousness has been so-called hard problem, and one of the remaining interesting bulwarks against a complete adoption of materialism or physicalism. What do we know about consciousness? We know that our thoughts are local to our bodies. When we move from place to place, our thoughts come with us. If I have a thought about what to make for dinner while getting dressed in the morning, and later I have that same thought after a drive to the office, the phenomena of the experience of the thought happened in two distinct times and places. In both instances, it was local to my body. We know that consciousness is found in complex living beings. Aristotle is quoted, "Nothing is what rocks dream about." All of the gradations of consciousness, from that of newborn human babies, that of cats or dogs, that of humans with physical brain trauma, the experience of dreaming, or a drug-induced stupor, or the lucidity of a healthy, unimpaired human adult. All of these arise from complex eukaryotic life. That's a bit abstract. We don't notice signs of consciousness from chunks of metal or microorganisms or bugs or plants, nor from larger natural phenomena such as mountains or rivers or weather patterns. We don't notice signs of consciousness from our own distinct parts, from just some dermal tissue, or from the hairs on our head, from just our eyes. We know consciousness first only from our own experience, and we extend the assumption of consciousness to beings like us. We have words like personification, embodiment, manifestation, which denote the difference between real human consciousness and our perception of agency overlaid with natural and other phenomena. Consciousness seems directly linked to the mind, to the brain, and to the material state of a complex nervous system. We know that levels of certain substances in the bloodstream and in the brain have a direct effect on emotion and agitation. Our own consciousness is, of course, colored by the senses. If you drink too much, your vision might become a bit blurry. The sights that we see, the sounds that we hear, the textures we touch, the scents we smell, and the tastes we taste, each of these adds a sort of richness to experience. Yet they do not fundamentally substantiate it. There is, of course, consciousness despite blindness, despite deafness and numbness, and similar limitations of smell and taste. We have developed a science of anesthesia, which has given the medical domain a chemical on-off switch for conscious experience. If you have undergone anesthesia, you will note the difference between the quick passage from the last moment of awakeness and the first moments of awakeness thereafter. When we're under anesthetic, we don't have access to the senses, nor to the subjective substrate of the senses. Consciousness necessarily depends on our physical state. It is something we have access to in a fashion dependent on the kind of thing we are. All of us, from our earliest moments in the world, through our lives up to our final moments, know what it means to be conscious. It is the gift shared with us by those who came before us, sustained by our decisions and actions, which serve us and maintain our health and longevity and that of our progeny. It is my hope that this discussion of the physical nature of the senses, of the material nature of our bodies, the world, and their interaction, of the link between our subjective experiences and physiological states, serves as an exposition to the question of whether consciousness as such stands as evidence for or against mind-body dualism, or physicalism and materialism. It is my hope that, while remaining subject to interpretation, this discussion serves as a recorded, inductive commencement of my intuition towards the latter. Thank you.